নিমাই শুরু করবো আমি
Sir, by our traditional practice, we have already started our 50th lecture of episode lecture series with our Vedic minds by faculty of Visva-Bharati. May I now request our Honorable Vice Chancellor Sir and the chairperson of this session to introduce our Visva-Bharati lecture series. Sir, please.
Namaskar and good morning to you, Professor Claudine Bautze-Picron. I think good morning for you, but for us it's good afternoon.
Well, it's 12 o'clock here, so it's all right.
So it's about to be good afternoon.
Yes.
You know, it's a great privilege, you know, for us at Visva-Bharati to welcome a colleague of ours from non-English speaking countries. You are the second person, because we had one from Sweden just last month, and you are the second person from non-English speaking countries. So that's a great privilege. There is another reason for which this particular lecture is distinctive, because you are the one who is giving the 50th lecture in this series. Well, the series, you know, started in 2019, early 19 in January, and now it's 2022 May, and we have just, you know, we are about to cross half century. So it is also quite distinctive And that will be distinctive because of your presence. And we got a person of your stature, person of your academic stature, to enlighten us on a theme which is very close to our heart. Especially, as you know, our founder, the Nobel laureate, Rabindranath Tagore, he was very close to Buddhism. He was close to most of the ancient texts, but he was close to Buddhism, and he wrote a famous dance drama called Chandalika, which was a very sharp critique of untouchability, the practice of untouchability. And there he introduced one Buddhist protagonist who accepted water from an untouchable god called Prakriti. And it's another way of just questioning untouchability, which Tagore very persuasively argued in this creative dance drama called Chandalika. Chandalika is a Bengali expression which means mainly outcast, outcast. So this is a very powerful criticism of outcast by the founder, Rabindranath Tagore. So your theme is very relevant to our kind of interest, not only because it was the interest of Tagore, but also the interest of all of us. Because as you know, India happens to be one of those countries where many religions prospered. And Buddhism, again, was born here. So that way, it's very close to our heart. And we are really looking forward to your lecture on Buddhist iconography in the 11th and 12th century. Now, I don't have to tell anything about you because I'm sure those who are attending your lecture must have seen you in the Google search. Mr. Google is very helpful in knowing what sort of academics we are, what sort of academic work we do, what is interesting to us. So thanks to Mr. Google, everybody knows about your scholarship, about your fame in the field. So that way we are really fortunate to have you in our midst. But I wish I could stay longer to listen to your entire lecture. But unlike your system, in our system, the Vice Chancellor is not an academic. He is a full-time administrator. And administrator means you have to deal with many files and you have to take decisions. So given that kind of responsibility, I may not be around all the time. Otherwise, I would have been there continuously. I love to be an academic because basically I'm an academic. I mean, it's a temporary assignment. But since this assignment involves my kind of interaction with the officers, handling many aspects of the university, I need to be busy on non-academic issues, unfortunately. So please excuse me if you don't see me. I'll keep my mic on so that I can listen to you, but I'll have to do with the files. So please excuse me for that, but I'm sure you will enjoy, my colleagues will be benefited by your lecture. And I'm really quite proud of the department, Ancient History, for having brought you, though virtually, to us. And I hope in due course, we would like to have physical meeting here at Shantiniketan, because there is a kind of system which we have evolved. Those who give lecture in this series, they automatically become member of our family. So you, by virtue of being one of the lecturers in this series, you are automatically accepted as a member of the family. And as a member, you have an obligation and we have an obligation. We have the obligation which we have is to host you, is to make your stay comfortable. And the obligation on your part is to visit us. So this is the kind of understanding we develop with those who come and lecture in this series. So Professor Claudine, right? How do you pronounce your name? Claudine?
Simply Claudine.
Claudino. Okay, so Professor Claudino, I think I should not waste much of your time. I should not stand between you and those who are really keen to listen to you, because they have listened to me enough. And most probably some of the colleagues who are listening to my lecture now, they are fed up. And so that way I don't want to, make their situation worse. With these words, again, I thank you very much for having accepted our offer. And I'm sure it will be very interesting for my colleagues and students. There are many students here who are attending the lecture. I think, I request my colleagues from the computer science department to show that many students are there in the place where this lecture is taking place. So that's also very interesting. I'm very happy after this outbreak of Corona. I mean, we are relatively free than you now, but still we are worried because it may come back. So there are many students who are keen to listen to you. And I'm happy that my colleague of the Department of Ancient History, Professor Anil Kumar, is around. And I can see Shandip Sharmadhik, another professor from the Department of History, and many professors of the university are here to listen to you. Now, with these words, again, I thank you very much, and you will have a wonderful session. I request my colleague, Professor Anil Kumar, to introduce you, and then please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much, and namaskar.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir, for your nice words. And I really am thankful, grateful to Dr. Claudine Bautze-Picron that she has accepted our request to deliver online lecture in this lecture series, as this is significant because, as sir has said, this is 50th lecture. And fortunately, it was started with Professor Dilip Kumar Chakravarti. So the first one was delivered by Professor Dilip Kumar Chakravarti, and the 50th by Dr. Claudine. So, sir, ma'am, I find it to be my privilege to introduce today's assembly to Dr. Claudine Bautze-Picron, having an eminent research in art history of Eastern India. She has enlightened students in the field of Indian art history at the Department of Art History and Archaeology at Brussels. She has done her master's from Brussels, diploma in Sanskrit from University de Lille. Sorry for my pronunciations. MPhil degree from GNU, then again doctorate from Aix-en province in 1988. From 1980 till 2018, she was affiliated with as Chargé de Recherche to the Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique, CNRS Paris, where she belonged to the team of Research Mondes Iranian at Indian, UMR. Further, from 1992 till September 2017, she was engaged in teaching Indian art history in the Department of Art History and Archaeology Faculty of Philosophy and Letters, Université Libre de Brussels. Most of her articles are, uploaded on the academia. There, if you click, you will find more than 100 articles uploaded, and all of them are equally important and significant. The main focus of her research for many years has been art history of Eastern India, Bihar, West Bengal, Bangladesh from 8th to 12th century CE, publishing a large number of articles considering stylistic as well as iconographic issues. The research culminated in publication of catalog of collections of Eastern Indian sculpture in Museums of Asian Art, Berlin, that is Eastern Indian Sculpture in Museum of Indian Art, Berlin. And in 1998. And in recent publications of a monograph on the sculptures from Purkihar that was published by ASI. The title of the book is Forgotten Place, Stone Sculptures at Purkihar by ASI in 2014. She also researched various aspects of Buddhist manuscripts, illuminations, and the iconography of Buddha, having published a book on the title, The Visual Buddha from India to Burma. New Considerations, New Delhi, 2010, and also published various papers and a book on murals of Bagan, Burma from 11th up to 13th century. Buddhist Murals of Pagan, Timeless Vistas of Cosmos, Bangkok. In 2003, this book was published, which is a very famous book. We all have, I think, those who are dealing with ancient Indian history and culture. Besides this, her scholarship, I must say, ma'am, one thing, that we, the students of ancient Indian history and archaeology, we are always grateful to you because of your support, always you are ready to support all of us. Whenever we contacted for any query, any questions, your prompt response. And if you remember, during the excavations also, you at least particularly helped me a lot in identifying some of the important sculptures, which we were really struggling to identify. For a couple of years, we could not identify that lintel, which we have, which is published in the history of Bengal art, the Avalokiteshwara and Manjushri and that thing. And besides that, I was really surprised to see within hours you identified that one sculpture by us, which is as suggested by you, is found in Himalayan region and all. So these are your kind gestures that you are always ready to help all the researchers, all the young scholars working in the field. And at the moment I requested you to deliver a lecture, without any hesitation, you accepted our offer. I'm really, really great. I will remain grateful to you for this gesture, ma'am. So thank you very much. I think I will not take more time. I should not stand in between. So may I now request you, ma'am, to start your presentation?
Yes, I will start. But first, I want to thank you and to thank also Professor Chakrabarti for your invitation. And I must say, dear Professor Kumar, that it was always a pleasure to work with you, and this exchange of mails has brought me also a lot of things. Do you hear me? Okay. Do you see the screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
the screen is visible. The screen, yes, I can see.
And you see
Buddha, is it Buddha?
It's okay.
You see, okay, very good. Well, I will just starting by reading a few lines, and then I will speak free of text. Artistic production is mainly found in two wide areas where monastic settlements existed from an earlier period, but up to the 11th century, artistic testimonies, particularly stone images, remain isolated and reflect the iconography which had emerged and developed in Bihar, mainly south of the Ganga River. Only little attention has been given to regional iconographic distinctive features, and yet these features can differ from region to region. The Buddhist pantheon in Bengal inherited the world of divine characters created at an earlier period in Bihar, like the Buddha, Avalokiteshvara, and so on. But it greatly enriched this pantheon during the period 11th-12th century with major characters like Hevadra or Punashabari, for instance. Some more important features should be also taken into consideration. First, specific images could be created within distinct regions, and these are the two regions which you see on the screen. And second, these images could be at the origin of iconographic topics or compositions which would appear in Tibet or even beyond in Central Asia. So I shall start with the main actor, being the Buddha. And I will try to explain how in the north or in the south, what are the characteristics of these images compared to each other or compared to what you have in Bihar. Well, in South Bengal, in a very large area, going from Vikrampur up to Komila district, in fact, you find images of the Buddha, such as those you see here on the screen, where the Buddha sits within a shrine. And this is, in fact, the most typical feature of the type of image of Buddha in this area. You have a threefold niche with a depiction of monument above. Here, more clearly, is the tower of the Mahabodhi temple. And this is a feature which you found in South Bengal, but not in North, for instance. This type of element, the trefoil niche, very deep with the Buddha image inserted into it, is found in the most typical type of iconography, which is really characteristic of the south, which is found in Komala district, in the Chittagong Hill Tracts, or even the Khulna district. This image here is worshipped now in the Buddhist monastery in Dhaka. And what you have is that you have the Buddha seated in the niche with the Mahabodhi, the tower of the temple, but observe carefully, especially these two images, the so-called 8 events of the life, or further details, further events of the life of the Buddha, are all shown also within a small shrines. So this is really a mark of the depiction of the Buddha in this region. Another element which is found in this part of Eastern India, in fact, it's not only a part of Bengal, but it's part also of Eastern India, is the fact that in the lower part of the image, and I don't go into the detail to explain what it is, but what you have here presented in the lower part are in fact events of the life of the Buddha, which are not usually depicted in Eastern India, like the great departure, the birth, and I mean, the scene after the birth presentation to Asita and so on. So you have a more complete depiction of the life of the Buddha, which is seen in this part of Eastern India. And just to compare it shortly to 2 images which are from Bihar, the Jagdishpur, which is the largest surviving image found in Eastern India, it's nearly 3 meters in 8, where you have a very detailed depiction of the 8 events of the life, but there are no shrines. The Buddha is not depicted in a shrine. And here is another example with a crowned Buddha. So in fact, this is the most typical way of depicting the 8 events of the life of the Buddha, whereas what you have seen from South Bengal is really the Bengali creation. So we have seen shortly these 2 types, the Buddha alone or the Buddha with a scene from his life in these shrines. And in fact, this is a feature which is really characteristic. I repeat myself, but I repeat myself with the help of some Buddhist illumination from a manuscript, which I usually called him the Baroda manuscript because the colophon page is in Baroda, but it's a very, very large manuscript which had 500 folios and which is very much and very well illustrated. The very important thing of the colophon is that it gives the name of the king and the dates. And the ruler Harivaman ruled, in fact, around Komila district. So this is really, and renewal year is 8, so it dates the manuscript around 11. So this is really a very important feature because usually one does not have this kind of information, knowing where the ruler was and in which period. And here you have most of the image in this manuscript are in fact depicted seated or standing in a shrine, which reproduce, if you see, it is the very same structure like here. Another element on which we'll come back, it's the fact that this, the style of this manuscript is in fact very, very clear and very clearly drawn with, especially when you look at the tree, they are really circular trees, which is very different from what you will find in the north or in East Bihar at a later period. I also showed this image of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara standing in shrine from the same manuscript, because this shows that if, in this case here, the deity, the character Bodhisattva or Buddha is shown as if in being in probably a brick-built monument. Here you have most probably a wooden structure, because you found also this kind of structure in nearby Pagan, for instance. So here is how this topic of the architectural trefoil develops. From Eastern Bihar, Vikramashila University, a monastic settlement, you have these 2 examples, and those here are from the second part of the 12th century, most probably from North Bengal. I mean, this has a name of Godanda Mandala, but one does not know exactly where it was painted. In fact, one has here date. Here was as the name in the colophon that it was donated by a queen. More one does not know. But the important thing is that this is really the beginning of this motif. You see here that there are 5 arcs. Sorry, the mouse is a bit nervous. So no more trees, so it becomes more complex. You see also that the trees are no more drawn very clearly, like in this case here. There are much more details like birds, flowers, and so on. You see also the arc becomes much more elaborated. So, but the beginning of this motif, this is here in South Bengal. Now, from this iconography, the Buddha seated in the temple and the 8 events around him, and in the lower part, various elements from his life. You have, this is also a pattern, a model, which has been translated in painting. Now, these paintings, they are no more to be seen in Eastern India. I mean, the temples have disappeared and the murals with them also. But we know, luckily, coming from Tibet, some of these early close paintings, a Tibetan art historian will say this is Tibetan 100%. The fact is that this kind of painting are very small, usually just 1 A4 page size. And in this case here, you have really the iconography, reproducing the iconography which you have in the sculptures from South Bengal. And you don't have, in contrary to other similar painting, depiction of Tibetan monks. It's really purely the life of the Buddha. So then after this kind of image here, this will become more elaborate, in fact, with depiction of Tibetan monks, an image of lineage of monks also on the side. But the origin of this iconography lies really in South Bengal. Now let's move to Avalokiteshvara. He is, of course, a major bodhisattva, as we know from a number of images, especially in Bihar. And late 10th or early 11th century is this image, which was found in Vikrampur, which is a major site, large area in south of Dhaka. The bodhisattva is here seated, attended by 4 characters. We have Brikuti, the Green Tara, Hayagriva, and here a young man who is Sudana Kumara. I will come back to him in a few moments. But if I show this image, it's because of the depiction of the Potala. The depiction is here very, very elaborated with the 5 Tathagatas and 2 rishis, animals who are worshipping and looking at the Bodhisattva. And this is a late and much simplified copy of such an image. You find again the 2 rishis, the 2 ascetics here in their niche, but you have only Amitabha who is depicted at the top. The 2 Taras are here, and behind the shield, you have in fact the Sudana Kumara and the Hayagriva. If I show you that, it's because of this image. This was found in Vikrampur, and luckily we have this old publication from 1909, the history of Vikrampur, which is really a source of information for material which is no more available, which has disappeared, destroyed, or lost, or I don't know. Until recently, this image, which you have on the left screen, in fact, was known only through this old image. The image, in fact, surfaced, luckily untouched, perfect, and is on loan for the moment at the Victoria and Albert Museum. So it's very far away from Bengal, but for me, it's very close. So I was very happy that I could just fly to London to see it some years ago. So what do we see here? But you have the Avalokiteshvara with his 4 attendants, again in this niche. And what you have here is really the very, very same structure like the image of the Buddha with his life all around. But you don't have here a construction, the temple. What you have is a mountain. The Tathagata sits in mountain, the 2 rishis sits in mountain, and the 4 attendants also. Here we have Brikuti, Hayagriva, the Green Tara, and Sudana Kumara. The Bodhisattva is also no more doing the gesture of giving, but is teaching. So you can compare shortly between this earlier image and this one, which must be from the 11th or 12th century. Now, a major character here in this image is Sudana Kumara. He sits here and is showing you, in fact, the manuscript. Sudana was a young man in quest of knowledge, spiritual knowledge, and he went from Bodhisattva to Bodhisattva, visiting also ascetics till he reached Maitreya and received the teaching from Maitreya. But he received also teaching from other Bodhisattvas, including Avalokiteshvara. And how is it that he was introduced in the image of Avalokiteshvara? Because till the 10th century, one does not see him in the image of Avalokiteshvara in all Eastern India. He appears around 1000, beginning of 11th century. Well, this shows, I think the reason is the fact that a text was really was written since a long time, known since a long time, but really was then illustrated in murals in India, for instance, in Tabo. This is a Gandharva Sutra, which tells the story of Sudana. The source for this impact of the text is, I think, the Borobudur, where the entire book, the entire history of Sudana has been depicted in relief on different levels of the monument. Monks were traveling a lot, as we know, and they must, I think, be very much impressed by this presence of this story on the monuments. And then you have the text has been illustrated in the Nepalese manuscript around 1100. This is what you have on the screen. Here you have one folios and the detail where Sudana is here with a manuscript again and listening here to Manjushri. And then you have the murals of Tabo illustrating the text. So the topic of Sudana entered also into Bihar, into Bengal, and then further Bihar at later period through this influence, I think, to the contact with with Java, with Indonesia. Now you have a few of these images of the Bodhisattva's teaching in the niche, which is on the Potala. And remember the trees which we have seen in the Harivarman manuscript, very well drawn. This is what you have here also. And there are a few more examples like this one, which is in the godown of the Indian Museum with a completely wrong label, but the wrong label is due to Henderson, who wrote already the catalogue in the 19th century. In fact, he wrote the objects of the origin of which he did not know, he writes it, he puts them to Bodh Gaya systematically. Because it's Buddhist, it has to be Bodh Gaya. Well, I suspect it's more from, it has a Orissa flavor, so it must come more from Bankura or Birbhum. I mean, it's more this part of Bengal. And he was making the gesture of teaching. So here's some detail, because it's really worth looking at detail of this sculpture. So you have, of course, Amitabha in the central niche, the other Tathagatas. It's really as if the mountain is constructed, in fact, very clearly, as if you had 5 shrines. You have also elements which are confronted. I mean, enemies meet each another. You have the lion meeting the deer. You have here a peacock meeting a naga. Here you have the mongoose meeting a naga, and there above you have the elephants meeting the lions. So elephants and lions are major topic fighting against each other since an early period, just like the deer and the lion, but I don't go into this detail now. Important thing are, for instance, here in this present case, the trees and the structure of the relief. The mountain, and I come back, shortly here to show you that it is really within the mountain. The mountain is also depicted at the lower level, as you see, and from really a frame all around the Bodhisattva. This is what you have, again, still in the very same Harivarman manuscript. So this is really, again, a creation in the region. This is a detail from these folios here. You see here a stupa, which is like in a niche in the mountain. Here you have a worship of a stupa in a cave. And here Bodhisattva playing music, another one seated, again with this motif of the mountain around. The motif appear also on 2 manuscripts which have been attributed to South Bengal by Jerry Lusty, and he must be, I think he was completely right. Here you see, for instance, the tree have this very clear line also. The manuscript is, these 2 manuscripts are not so beautiful, I must say, so well preserved, so clear as the Harivarman manuscript, which is really a masterpiece. But the important thing is that you have the rocks, as you see here, are depicted really with different colors. You have three major colors, the blue, the red, and the yellow. Here you have a more complicated, different way of showing the rocks around the two depiction of Jatakas. Now the mountain is apparently also related to the gesture of teaching. On the right screen, you have an image of a Tara teaching. This image was in my Namachi till probably, I think, the late 60s. It was at a certain moment transported to Pakistan, where it's still preserved, apparently. But this is an image from the archaeological department of Bangladesh. So in fact, there is no sign of the sculpture after it went to Pakistan. But you see that she is also seated in a niche, and you have here the depiction of the rocks. Another set of characters are depicted here. These are in fact the Buddhas of the past and Maitreya, but that's not the purpose of here. It's just showing that the gesture of teaching is related to the mountain. And this again appears also in close paintings found in Tibet, which are, I would say, is a kind of transitional phase between India and Tibet. Again, it's difficult to say, but here you have Tibetan monks who are painted. But you see here an image of Sadakshari Lokeshvara, which is also an aspect of teaching Bodhisattva, again in this mountain, which is found all around with the Tathagatas at the top, and again two monks, two Tibetan monks on the upper part. And you have also here couples. I did not show them, but they appeared on the early image from the Buddha in the Potala. And this topic, the mountain and the teacher, will survive in Tibetan painting till at least the 14th, 15th century. In a very mechanic way, as you can see here. It's very decorative. One wonders whether the painters really knew. I mean, it's not realistic like the Indian could do it. But you see the motif is really preserved. And you have quite a number of these teachers who are set like that in this landscape of mountain, of rocks. Now, also starting from South Bengal, the motif of the mountain migrated in another direction. And this is Pagan, where you find in the Abhayadana, this is the external wall of the Abhayadana, where you are inside, of course. You have a corridor which is turning all around the shrine, the shrine where the image of the Buddha is. And you have a continuous frieze with the motif of the rocks and the mountain. Now we must know that the name Abhayadana, given monument is around 1100, she was given to the temple, is the name of the wife, the queen of Kyanzita. And she is said to come from Samatata, which means again South Bengal, Southeast Bengal. So here are some details of this frieze in the Abhayadana. It's a very complicated iconographic program. In fact, I don't know if they had really a program, but they put a number of Buddhas, there are Bodhisattvas, there are depiction of Jatakas. You have also depiction of ferocious deities. Here, I think, is a janguli, or here, snakes are there. Here you have ascetics. There are quite a number of ascetics who are depicted. But the main thing, the part of the discussion is this decoration of mountains with the trees in between and also some animals. I did not mention it, but you have also small animals which can be seen in the rocks in South Bengal, and which are also seen in the early Tibetan or late Indian painting. So from Bengal, it will be transferred so to Tibet, to Pagan, but also it will go further to Karakoto, which is in Central Asia. And you have here a large fragment of cloth paintings, where you see again this ornamentation. This is a detail from this part. And here some more fragments of the same cloth paintings, where you see again this motif of the mountain. You see also the trees are here also very clearly drawn. Further in Central Asia, you have the Yulin caves, where one cave, cave 4, has 4 such examples. So this is from the last testimony in date of this motif of the mountain, which is here all around the central figure. Now, the the motif of the mountain appears around on a famous Klaus painting, which is the painting of the Green Tara with the 8 Taras, Ashtamahabhaya Tara around her. The Tathagatas in the upper part, and you see here again the mountains. So this is a painting which has been dated between the 11th and 12th century. It was found, there's a Retting monastery allusion to it. It was found in Retting, and Retting is associated to Atisha, who went to Tibet, as we know, in the 11th century. So there was a lot of discussion of knowing it's Indian, and he brought it back, or he had ordered it to make it in India. But we know that, this we know also from historical testimony in Tibet, that there were really Indian painters working for Tibetan monks. So this could have been done in India or in Tibet, but to my opinion, it's clearly an Indian painter who had his hand, because through some details here, you can't see them, and I did not want, in fact, to mention it because it's going too much in details, but you have, in fact, depiction here of a group of lion affronting a group of elephant. And I don't know, and you have this very beautiful banana tree, and I do not know whether a Tibetan painter would be aware of this kind of reality in art. So the Tara appears also in Yulin, also with this mountain rocks all around, and then on this silk embroidery from Karakoto. So you see that it has really a lot of, I mean, when it was created around 11 or end of 11th century probably, or early 12th, it's difficult to say it. It really got a lot of power in the mind of the artists, or the mind of those who asked Indian artists to work for them or carried object, to be included in this artistic vocabulary as far as Central Asia. Now, there are other elements which have to be taken into account when we work with iconography, and where one does not always think about them. These are what I used to name small motifs. Small motifs are elements, when you see such image, iconography will tell you, oh, this is Ashtamahabhaya Tara, this is Arapachana Manjushri, and one is happy with this, and one describes maybe the attendance, and that's it. But in fact, one has to look also at how is the deity depicted, what are the other elements which are introduced, which also bear meaning on what is the personality, if I may say, of the character who is depicted. You see that the three of them sit in fact directly on the lotus, which is really a seat. And in this case, you can see that 2 nagas are supporting the lotus, like here, in the case of the Manjushri. Another element on which we shall return after a few minutes is the motif here of the monk with a pointed hat and the manuscript lying on a high pedestal. So these are all elements which belong, in fact, to the iconography. Now, still remaining with the mountain question, in the recent years, there's such a sculpture which was collected in the Bogra district and is located in Marstan Museum, and where it has been identified as being Dattatreya. I mean, it's the point is that it's a very rare image. It's an image for which I did not find any sadhana, any description as such, but it's really related to the so-called Hala Hala Lokeshvara. You have here 2 examples, one small bronze from Vikrampur, one small image from Nalanda. You can see that, in fact, they are different also in iconography. The only thing we know is the Bodhisattva has 3 faces and is 6 hands. I mean, Avalokiteshvara. He has a white lotus, the text says, and he has a Trishula with a naga around. This is also what he has here. And he has also a kapala, it said, with white flowers, which should come here. This is a kapala. The point is that he has this mountain around him in the upper part, which is very different in style from what we have in the south. But you have, like in South Bengal, the 2 nagas who supposed to sit. And whether it was identified as this image which combined the 3 main images of the Trimurti, if you look carefully at this headdress, and so I put this detail, you will see that Amitabha is here depicted. And he has also a row of kapalas which in fact relates to some late Vajrayana image, which we'll still see some in. So here is again this image in the center. And in fact, E is related to image which you find in Eastern Bihar. This is the image from Simanada Lokeshwara from Lakhisadai, but you have another one which was found in Sultanganj and probably, in fact, is related to Vikramashila. The Simanada Lokeshwara cures from diseases. And in fact, he has borrowed a number of elements from other characters also. He is also a white kapala with white flowers here. He has the Trishula with a naga, so this is what he has here, in fact. And in fact, he has also, if I may say, borrowed 2 elements from the earlier iconography of Manjushri, which is the sword and the lion. So this Bodhisattva here, this Avalokiteshvara here, has elements coming from this direction, from this personality, but he has also elements coming from this character. This is, of course, Shiva, Mrityunjaya, and the interesting thing are, in fact, the hands in Dhyana Mudra. He has also 6 hands, he has only 1 face, but I think the artists were asked to create an image of this character, Hala Lokeshwara, in this part, an iconography which is fixed in the text, but the text differs from what you have in images. It's not a very common image which is met with. So it's in each monastery where someone asked, I want to have him, somehow they had to create from nothing. And they got inspired from what was all around. And I think that multiplication of heads here also may have been due to the fact that this North Bengal area is, of course, a part of Bengal where the main male deity was Shiva, and Sada Shiva at that time was a major deity. So these are just speculations, but this image is really unique in its kind. So it shows that, in fact, Buddhist iconography was, in fact, very, very creative. We are really in a phase where creation, new things are created. So let's move now to the next Bodhisattva, which is Manjushri. Manjushri on your left is the Arapachana, which has the 5 syllables, and he is, in fact, depicted 5 times. His broken arm held the sword, and he has here the book, and he is depicted 5 times. What you see here is a central image, and we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So supported by 2 running nagas. And this image is important also because this image or similar image was most probably at the source of the one which you have on the right side, which was produced in the 13th century in East Java. When you have clearly the Bodhisattva with a sword, the book held in front of the breast, and is 4 other images around him. Now, another aspect of Manjushri, which is also well known from South Bengal, from the Kanpur area, most probably, is this one. Well, first, let's look at the structure of the image. It's the same structure like the Avalokiteshvara on the Potala or the Buddha and its life. You have a very deep niche with the Bodhisattva depicted inside it, the trefoil and monuments around him. Like a mandala, in fact, with Panchatagatas in a very elaborated forms. They are all 6 arms, as you see. And another element which appears here and appeared also in images of Avalokiteshvara is the fact that the 7 jewels of the Chakravartin are depicted. So it's another of these small motifs which has to be considered. And before I'll come back to these small motifs, I wanted just to compare this. So let's go back, just this type of image with a sword and like the previous one with the book only, or here more elaborate, with what you found in North Bengal. Because in North Bengal, it's another way of showing the teaching. Manjushri is on the lion, and the lion is, of course, the voice of the Buddha, it's the voice of the Dharma. He is teaching, he has his blue Utpala, and he is also, as a teacher, flanked by 2 characters. here quite well to be seen. One is, as you see here, Sudana Kumara with the book under his armpit. So you have the Sudana Kumara appears in the iconography in the image of Avalokiteshvara at the time, but is also listening to the teaching given by Manjushri. You see also that the lower part is completely different from what you have. You have a high pedestal, which still separates the lotus from the earth. So now, after having seen this male characters, we can show a little bit of female deities. And the major female deities we've met with in South Bengal is, of course, Marichi. So you have here three images, in fact, from west south to start with Birbhum district, and then Vikrampur, and then at the east, Mainamati. So we have three images from this deity, who is really, there are really a large number of her images. And what characterizes her images? Well, it's the fact that she's really seen in the Chaitya. Well, you see the Chaitya is very clearly depicted. In fact, it's just like in the image which we have seen, where the architectural element is very important. Here also, she is standing really in Pratyalida in this shrine, in this Chaitya Griya. So, and just to compare this type of iconography, because this is part of her iconography, is a Chaitya also of Vairochana, and she belongs to the Kula of Vairochana, with what you have in Bihar. Here an example from Nalanda and one later from Lakhisarai. Here you still have a trace of this Chaitya, but here in Lakhisarai, you see there is no depiction at all of this architecture. This is what you have normally in Bihar, no trace of the architecture, but of course a flame. She is the light, and one can wonder why her images are so numerous in South Bengal. Well, I suspect that she is an ambivalent deity. She is the light which appears when Siddhartha, when Shakyamuni becomes Buddha. So that's a light which really pervades the entire universe at that moment. So she's a very powerful, and she's also, of course, a kind of, I would say, political image of Buddhism invading the country, if I may say. She's really running, and she has a very aggressive position, and she can also destroy, but she can also unsave those who accept to reach the Sangha. And also in Vikrampur, apart from this very classical iconography where she's 6 or 8 armed and has 3 faces with a sword face on one side, appear also this image, which is a unique image of the so-called red Marichi. And here you see that she has really a frightful, terrifying aspect. She is pot-bellied. She has a garland with head. She has here a head, which is the head of, say, the head of Brahma. She is also pulling arrows, and so it's, and here you see she's still in this Chaitya, and she's still there with Vairochana. So this is not a creation which you have then in South Bengal, like this kind of ferocious deity. And of course, the most ferocious of them is probably Parnashavari. You have here 3 images which come from Vikrampur, and she's very similar in body to the red Marichi, which we have seen. She tramples on 2 characters. She also destroys Ganesha, Lord of Obstacles, obstacles to Buddhism, of course. And one element which appears here, and which appears also if I return shortly to such images, maybe not here, but here, it's in fact that they are very, very clearly drawn. I mean, it's like a drawing or a painting with a line, and the back behind the deity is in fact plain. So again, we have this really a feature of the style in the region, like we have it in the Arivanman manuscript, where the deity is very clearly to see. There is no waste in looking at small carvings on the back slab. Now, going to this ferocious deity, we can move slightly back to the male part of them. with, again, a character who is very rarely encountered in India as such, apart from manuscript. This is Achala. So he belongs also, like Manjushri, to the Akshobhya Kula, and you have here, for instance, Akshobhya depicted. This is an image which was found in Komila. This is a small bronze, which was found, in fact, in the excavation at Jagadala. The sword is broken, but he has a very typical position, having the sword and the noose. And here you have a detail from one painted manuscript, where more details are, of course, allowed to be depicted. He has a tiger skin, he's pot-bellied, and he has a beard here. And another way of showing Achala appears here. This is an earlier image, and in fact, it's the photo, I took it from the catalogue of Mukteshwar Raman of the Varandar Research Museum catalog, where it just describing as a sword man. And it has been for me also enigmatic, a sword man. Well, a sword man, if you look at him, this is really the sword man, I mean, the strongest one. I mean, the sword, holding the sword above the head, like in fact Manjushri also does, with which he destroys, in fact, darkness. And here you have, in fact, two further depiction of Achala. Again, this is one of these Tibetan painting, but it's for me a transition. I mean, it's probably still painted by Indian painter. Here, another example where you see is trampling on Ganesha. And because Achala can be seen half kneeling, as we have seen, or it can be also seen as here depicted. So I think this is a prototype for such a, an iconography, which will be very much represented in Tibet, not so much in India, but from, if I remember properly, also a small Achala was discovered recently in the Lal Parvat Lakhisara excavations. So from Achala, we can come now to the one who was really the character ruling over Buddhist Sangha in Bengal. This is Heruka. Heruka is the generic name, and under this generic name, you have, in fact, Visva-Bharati, and I will use the term Evadra, and he presents a number of forms, like any Indian character, in fact, that's not special to Buddhism. And these aspects also have different names, but it's the same thing in Hinduism. Shiva has X forms, and each form can be named differently, but we can always say it's Shiva. So let's stay here with Evadra. So here are three images of Evadra, which all come from South Bengal. I mean, the right is again from the Harivarman manuscript. So he is depicted here in this position of dancing. He is often accompanied by 4, sometimes 8 yoginis or dakinis. His hair, and the text says, is flaming. These are flames. You have it here also. He often dances on a corpse. So we have seen the garland with heads. They are not skulls, they are really heads, as you can see, very carefully depicted and hanging through the hair. He wears the katvanga and a vajra, or a cleaver and a kapala in the other hand. So this is really a classical and simple depiction of this deity. And just like we have seen that the Manjushri Arapachana could be exported, if I may say, the iconography could be exported to Eastern Java, the same thing happens with this dancing Hera, Evadra Heruka. You have here on the left screen an image, as you see, it's really like a big puzzle. It's a very old image, which is nearly 100 years old. Like when the image was discovered, in fact, and the image was discovered in a small temple. Now the temple has been partly reconstructed in northwest Sumatra, and now only a few fragments remain, in fact. But you see, this has been locally carved. It's a volcanic stone from the region, but you see, it's really reproduced what you have in South Bengal. And the importance of Evadra can be measured when you see this image of Avalokiteshvara. with Sudana and Hayagriva, you have an umbrella, and above the umbrella, you have a chaitya with a dancing Iruka. And it's why I put this sculpture here, because you see, this is really the very, very same character, with even above Avalokiteshvara. He's above Avalokiteshvara and he's above Amitabha. So he's really, the Amitabha is really seen here on the Jata. So he's really above all this, he's at the center, he's the most powerful deity. Now I would like to draw again your attention to this, what I call small motifs. I had mentioned this is apart from one of the Manjushri. This is from a Tara, and this is a detail from this Avalokiteshvara. Again, you have a small motif, the 7 jewels of the Chakravatin, dancing characters which were part of rituals, apparently. And on the tree, these 3 images, and much more than these 3, many such images have it, you have then the topic of the monks with his pointed head and the high pedestal with the manuscript which is being worshipped. Here with the umbrella, here you have 3 ratnas which are depicted on it. So again, you have here this iconography of the character, which is becoming richer through such elements, and which shows in fact the human part of the ritual to this image. Now, there are some images which unfortunately have disappeared in the course of time. And this was the case for these 2 images, which have been published in this old publication from 1909, The History of Vikrampur, which is a very, very precious book because it includes a lot of images, photos of images which have sometimes disappeared. Just this one I'll show you in a moment with the better photos. This one is, for instance, one which is not traceable today. Maybe it will be found again. One should never say never. But let's see it. When you have the standing 2 hands, Kadvanga, probably Vajra here on the corpse dancing, this is what we have seen in the previous images. But if you look carefully, I know it's difficult because the image is not that best quality. You see here, there's an element here and there and there. In fact, you have trees. You have 8 trees with a character seated below them. And in between these trees, you have the dancing yoginis, 8 yoginis around him. So let's see now a detail of this image. This image, in fact, luckily surfaced and was photographed in the late 60s by John Huntington in Dhaka. And again, this image has been in the meantime, I mean, not in the meantime, probably in the late 60s or around 70, carried to Pakistan. But we have luckily this photo by John Huntington. So we can look at it as in a more careful way than on this old photo. The only thing to be noted is that a part has been here lost with 2 of the dancing yoginis. So they dance on corpses. There were 8 altogether. And then you have this upper part. And this is the most interesting feature. I mean, it's not the most interesting feature of the sculpture, but it is really a most interesting feature. You have 8 trees, and if you pay attention, you'll see some trees have heads coming, animals like here, like you have a bird, sometimes you have characters below. In fact, what are they? What are these 8 trees with fantastic beings, genius, which are coming on? In fact, these are the 8 cremation grounds. The 8 cremation ground is a topic also, which is much well known by Tibetan paintings. But as far as Indian sculpture is concerned, this is really unique. This shows that, again, this topic of the 8 cremation ground, which are distributed around Eruka, Evaldra, is really a creation again of Bengal sculpture. This was found in Vikrampur. This was not found in Vikrampur, but was in fact excavated at Jagadala in the recent years. She is in fact the consort of Evaldra. She's Nairatnya. She has a Kadvanga, she has a Kapala and a cleaver to clean the Kapala. She is also standing on a corpse, dancing on a corpse. She has also a garland with heads. She is accompanied by 2 female attendants. And if you pay attention, you will see that there are 8 trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 around her. Again, she's at the center of a mandala with the 8 cremation grounds around her. And you see here you have animals who are feeding, which are feeding on corpses. So this again shows that the iconography was in the area extremely creative and created really topics which were at a later period, or practically at this period, in fact, imported in Tibet. You have, for instance, this early painting from found in a Tibetan monastery, where you have another aspect of Evadra. In fact, it's a chakra samvara, but that doesn't matter now. What I want to show you is how the topic of the 8 symmetries will develop, in fact. I mean, there's 8 symmetries, have a tree, there's a ruler, there are scenes particular to each of the 8 symmetries. So this is really a topic and such, and which is in fact which was created again in Bengal. 2 more images from North Bengal from this deity, Evadra. This one here, which you can see some of the dancing yoginis. And this one, which is again a creation, a rare, unique example of an aspect of Evadra, who is supposed to have 3 heads and 4 arms, which is the case here. He has his flaming hair, flames around him, and he is also accompanied by 4 deities. There's 4 females. Sorry, 1, 2. Oops. Sorry, I pushed on the wrong button. Excuse me. You have here the 4 dancing female around him, and he dances, as you see on the corpse. Is also the allusion to a cremation ground is also made, as you see a skeleton with animals. Here you have a body already half destroyed, and he is named Mahamaya. I mean, we know what Maya is, we know what Ma is, but his name is Mahamaya in this form, and it's really the only image which I know of this aspect of it's Buddha, in fact. Now, this is well known because you could, well, good, but you could tell me, but you know, Evadra is found anywhere in any Buddhist monastery of India. It's true and it's not true. It's true that he is found in a number of monasteries. On the left screen, you have one from Orissa, and the 2 others, which are badly preserved, were found in Sarnath. But this is how he is found normally, 2 hands. So the easiest, the most simple form is found outside Bengal. But in Bengal itself, you have these very complicated forms with the symmetries, with the cremation grounds. And outside Bengal, the only 2 other elaborated images which I could trace are these 2 images from Bihar, one very much destroyed from Nalanda, and one from Kurkihar. When again he is alone, this is a very rough image, it's not the best quality compared to what we have seen in Bengal or compared to this image from Nalanda. But in fact, here there was no trees, no other characters, only the 8 dancing yoginis around. So again, the complicated, very rich and iconography of Evadra, you have to go back to Bengal to find its source. Now we have seen him really in this very frightful aspect, and he remains a terrifying deity, and with a name as Kapaladhara Evadra. Well, Kapaladhara, that's the name which is found, in fact, in Tibetan and Chinese source, and the Sanskrit versions says, in fact, that he has 16 arms holding kapalas, and each kapalas you have an element, either an animal or a deity. The 2 images which you have on the screen are, in fact, small images. When they were complete, they must not have been more than 15 centimeters in 8. And they were found, one on the left in Parpur, it's now in the Indian Museum, the one on the right, it was found, in fact, in the recent years in Jagadala again. And let us remember that, and you know it because it's your country, I mean, your part of the world, both, in fact, settlements, both are really neighbor. So here you have the back of this image. So in these images, he is also embracing Nairatma, in fact. He has 8 heads. You see the 8 heads is on the top, 7 are visible, and 16 arms. And he's trampling on 4 deities, but we will see all that now in better representation in a moment. So this is the back of the image, where you see the 2 arms of Nairatma holding, in fact, the cleaver and the kapala. So these are these 2 small images which are from Jagadala and Parapur. And then from nearby Murshidabad district, there is this quite fantastic sculpture, which is measured nearly 50 centimeters in height, and on which I want now to show you again the back. You see here the back is very clear. He has 4 legs. One leg is in the Pratyalada, and the other one is in the dancing position, like she. She has only 2 legs and 2 arms and 1 head. So here's the detail of this Hevajra. He holds 16 kapalas, and the text says, and this follows really well the text, or the text follows the image, but the text is earlier. This is Hevajra Tantra describes him, and it goes back to a much earlier period. In the kapala in the right hand, he should have animals, and the first animal which he has is an elephant. As you see, there's a tiny elephant here lying, then there's a horse, a donkey, a bull, and then there's a camel. Then here should be a man. Strange enough, this is bit destroyed. There is a fantastic creature, and there here should be a cat. And on the other side, the first one lying here is Prithvi. Then you have Varuna. There you have Vayu, which you can recognize. You have here Agni, which you can recognize also with his beard and pot belly. Of course, the moon and the sun, that's obvious. Yama, and then Jambala, the one giving the riches. So you have here a detail of this really extremely well preserved carving, where both are embracing, and you see very carefully in the 7 heads, and the 8 is of the head. So these 2 of them, they dance and tramples on 4 deities, which are the 4 great gods of Hinduism at that time. And these are the 4 which appears also as part of Mara's army in manuscript illuminations. Here you have Brahma lying very peacefully, and in fact making the Anjali Mudra, so recognizing the power of Hevajra. Here you have also quite peacefully accepting his fate, Vishnu. Here, Indra, he has a Vajra, and if you can see properly, I mean, it's maybe a bit difficult, but in fact, he has eyes which are carved all to his body, as we know. And the only one who is not very satisfied with his fate is, of course, Shiva Bhairava. You see that he is not happy to be trampled like that by Hevajra. But you have here extremely detailed carving of these 4 deities. And similarly, they appear in manuscript illumination. Now you have to think that this painting is in 7 or 8 centimeters. You have here is without Nairatmya, but here's here the Kabbalah. You can see here some of the animals. Can you recognize some of the animals? And you see here the 4 gods who seems to fight back to him. Now, apart from this 3 images, 2 small images from Parapur, Jagadala, and this large image from Murshidabad district, I only found trace of one example of stone image where he has kapalas in all his hands. And this is an image which probably was from Bodh Gaya or from the area of Bodh Gaya, but it's now, in fact, kept since hundreds of years, in fact, in the Krishna Dwarka temple in Gaya. And it was already there 200 years ago when this drawing was made on the right screen. And luckily we have the drawing. It was made under the direction of Francis Buchanan, who had to make a survey of the region. And luckily the drawing is there because we see that Nairatma is not depicted, in fact, but that there are, these dancing yoginis around. 3 of them, you can see them here. And this, again, is an image. This is the only way of, we are still lucky to allow to take a photograph. My husband could make a photo of it because there is a paper by Devara Mitra where she describes the image entirely from here because she was really very much not happy with the priest in the temple, which did not allow her to take a photo. Well, the time have changed and maybe there was another priest when we went there, and but this is the image. So this is the only example which I know from Bihar where he is really so-called Kapala Dara. An element to be seen in this drawing, this is a detail, is that if you see here are the 7 heads, and the eighth head is in fact turned to upwards, luckily, because here it's difficult to see. You have above the Visva-Vajra, which you have here also. And recently I came across these heads where again the eighth head is looking, face is looking upwards, which I do not know what it means, in fact, compared to the image from Murshidabad on those from Parpur Jagadala, where all the eight heads are looking at you. And you have here the Visva-Vajra, and above, of course, you have Akshobhya. So apart from this quite impressive image, this type of this Kapaladhara has been also reproduced in a number of small carving in stone or cast in bronze. You have here two examples. And most of these images, in fact, which you see when they are in better, outstanding conditions, in fact, they were carried back by monks, by Tibetan monks back to Tibet, and they are coming now back from Tibet, usually to the Western world. So this is an iconography which is with 4 deities below and 2 deities, he, Evadra, and Nairatma, trampling on these 4 gods with 16 heads with a Kapala, the hair shown with flames. So apart from this type of image here, there is another one, and at the first glance, one can in fact confuse them because one sees just a deity, male deity with a female and many arms and many weapons, but they are very different in their iconography. But both are aspects of the same Evadra. Here's a detail of a Kapaladhara Evadra as we have seen, compared with the Chakra Samvara. He has his hair flaming, and the text uses really the word Jvalita. Here he wears the Jata Mukuta. This is what you have here. He has also only 4 heads and 12 arms. He has 16 arms. He has 2 legs. He has 4 legs. He has 4 gods below. He has only 2 deities, which are Bhairava and Kalaratri. And here the consort is Naratmya. Here she is Vajravarahi. So you see that the iconography of this character is very complex, but is really, really emerged there in the context of Bengal. Again, all these are small images, and when they are in perfect condition like that, they were carried back to Tibet. So just like the 2 images which you have seen from Parapur and Jagadala, and I guess that maybe some more are lying in the earth of India and Bangladesh of these small images, but they were easy to carry for a monk, even going from one monastery to the other. You see here the back of this Chakra Samvara, and you see that, in fact, you don't see fully the back of the deity for the one simple reason that, in fact, Chakra Samvara is also pulling the elephant skin behind. He has a number of elements which he has borrowed from Shiva, in fact. But you see how carefully they are all carved front and back. So here, 2 stone images showing Chakra Samvara from North Bengal. This one is in the Indian Museum. When you see he's also surrounded by these yoginis. Here he has 2 deities, Bhairava and Kalaratri under his feet. And here you can see how he's pulling, in fact, the skin of the elephant. Here you see it better here, and here you have nose of the elephant here. And again, you have here also an allusion to some cremation ground. So this iconography, in fact, is quite rare in large stone image like here. It's more common in small images. Another creation which was found not only in Bengal, but also in Bihar. But as far as Evadra is concerned, they probably mostly come from North Bengal. These are the lotus mandala. As such, whether it's Chakra Samvara or the Kapaladhara, is at the center of a mandala, which is very much elaborated with a number of characters, different rows around the main deity. And of course, the most clever and the most aesthetic way of showing a mandala is definitely the lotus mandala. Now, you found from Bihar, Bengal, there are Vajratara mandala, which has been found. And here you have quite perfect such mandala from Eastern India or North Bengal, which was again found back in Tibet. And you see that he is in the center with his consort. And on the side of the petals, you have in fact different characters, 1, 2, 3, which coincides with the 3 different circles around the central deity. Here, another example where it is close. Here is a simple one. You just have the 8 yoginis, and in the middle was a small representation of the god with his consort. But interesting is that when the lotus is closed, you had another element of the Buddhist iconography of the time, which I did not mention because it's another, it belongs to the iconography of Buddhism. These are the Mahasiddhas. 8 Mahasiddhas are depicted here. The set is really fixed then at that period in the region and appears around here the lotus. So here you have a look inside the. So I wanted to conclude on this lotus mandala and on this Nairatma from North Bengal. And I wanted, in fact, to try to show how specific topics were really created in South or in the North, were exported towards Tibet mainly, and rescued somehow from oblivion. Some elements of the iconography, which we would disregard maybe at the first glance, were in fact carried up to Pagan or to Central Asia, or were also very much very well known also in Tibet, like the mountain, for instance, or the 8 cremation ground. And so also I had, of course, to let a number of things out. I did not show any Tara, for instance, any Jambala. They also just wanted just to show the more typical features which were really created in this part of Bengal. So on these words, I want to thank you for your patience. I hope it was not too much chaotic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for your mesmerizing presentation. And I don't think there's a question from my side, at least. Request my students and my faculty member, teacher colleagues, and those who have joined online, if there is any question from their side, they can put that question in the chat box. And here also, if there is any question, you may please come forward and she'll be happy to answer your questions.
Anil, if you permit me, I just, because I have to, get involved with another meeting. So I just would like to thank Claudine for a wonderful, presentation. I mean, although you couldn't see me, but I was in my table and, doing multitasking, handling official papers and listening to your very fascinating discussion, and also the slides, which I saw quite regularly. So I think Claudine and I thank you on my behalf and on behalf of my colleagues and also on behalf of my students and all those who are attending your lecture. So as I said earlier, we expect you to be here physically, according to your convenience. And as I said earlier, it's our obligation to host you and it's your obligation to visit us. So let us respect these 2 obligations. And I'm sorry, I have to just go to another room because there is a larger meeting which I cannot accommodate in my office. So and thank you very much again. And I'm sure there will be very interesting questions because they're all looking forward to interacting with you, though virtually. So I don't want to stand between them and you. So now over to Anil.
Sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, sir, for spending some time with us.
Anil, আমি চলে যাচ্ছি কিন্তু আমাকে অন্য ঘরে মিটিং এ যাচ্ছি, ঠিক আছে? তুমি ম্যানেজ করে নিও। হ্যাঁ? Sure, sir. Word of thanks টা কি করছে?
Sir, we were expecting you, but we will manage.
Now, please do. I just gave a word of thanks ahead of the completion of the session. But as I said, I express my gratitude to you, and there will be kind of formalities. So my colleague, Professor Anil Kumar, will do that. And there are others also. You can involve anybody. You can involve anybody.
My colleagues are ready, and that will be done.
So I'm sure you excuse me.
Yeah, I excuse you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day.
Thanks.
From this side, the audience? I think one is in chat box. And one question is there from, I don't know, name is not mentioned here. Do you find any tantric influence on Buddhism during the period of your lecture? Tantric influence on, what is that, Buddhism?
Yeah, well, what does the person understand under tantric? If you say tantra, yes, of course. I mean, the image of Hevajra, for instance, are describing the Hevajra tantra. So you are fully in this phase of Buddhism. So it's not influence, it is there. It's not influence coming from outside, it's part of the development of this phase of Buddhism.
So that's over. Anything else? You have some question? Okay. Manashwini, you want to have some question, please? One student of our department, she wants to interact, ma'am. Please. Please take it.
Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for your wonderful lecture. Ma'am, my question is there any regional variation have you observed between the Buddhist iconography of Bengal, Bihar, and in Odisha?
I'm sorry, I did not follow the beginning of the question.
Is there any regional variation have you observed between the Buddhist iconography of Bengal, Bihar, and in Odisha?
You mean regional, from region?
Regional variations in the iconography of Buddhist pictures.
Well, I tried, you know, the point is that I think that when one looks at iconography in Buddhism, it's the same, must be the same for Hinduism also, that's different. One should also look what you have in each region. So I tried, and I just started, in fact, recently to put together the images in relation to their find spot or to their place of productions. And I must confess that I mainly looked at what is in Bihar and Bengal because the amount of material is so huge that I apologize for it, but Orissa was always at the edge of my main area of research, just because you can't look at everything and you have to make decision where you look, and already working now. When you go in detail, like a site, like I made Kurkihar, for instance, Kurkihar, it took 20 years for me to make Kurkihar because, and I'm guessing that it will take also many years for putting an end to the Lakhisarai project, because the amount of material is so large. And when I've shown here also for South Bengal, the material is also not always easily available. Try to see something in the reserve of the Dhaka Museum. Try to photograph anything in the National Museum of Bangladesh. And then you just have to rely on a number of secondary sources, and you are never sure that you have really everything. First. Second is that there is a moment where you say, now it's finished. I don't collect any more material and I work on what is there. And for me, it was clear that when you work on Bengal, and it's why on the map I included in the northern part also, I went up to Bihar, because the eastern part of, the size, starting in Lakhisarai, it's late Nalanda, but Lakhisarai is really the site where it starts. There you can draw connections with what you have in Bengal, with North Bengal, but mainly South Bengal. So I am not sure that I replied to your question, but I mean, rather, you know, that to look, there are two ways of looking at the iconography. You can also, and one must do it also, you take one character and you see how he or she is depicted everywhere. This is one point. But the regional aspect allows, I think, to better explain or to try to understand what really appeared there. If I take, for instance, Manjushri, and I take Manjushri there, well, what does it tell me? It tells me something about how Manjushri appears, how he's changing, and so on. But it doesn't tell me nothing on how was he perceived there in what is the context of Manjushri in South Bengal, where you have to take into consideration also the Hevadras and the Buddhas and so on, where you see that is there, for instance, very strongly a unity in style in the composition of the images. So you have to play within the two dimensions, the single iconography and the regional, which is difficult, I must say.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anything else you have? My colleague from geography department.
Oh, yes.
Premanshu, he has a question, please.
Madam, as a geographer, we encounter in our field, different Buddhist figurines, and one question rises in my mind regarding, particularly on Manjushri, that is, sword in the hand of Manjushri, it is from the beginning. It is from the beginning, or it has been imposed later with the Tibetan influence, as the sword in his hand is to destroy the net of Maya. But whatever it is, whether in Bengal Buddhist iconography, it was from the beginning or it was later addition?
Oh, this is an interesting question. I mean, one has earlier image of Manjushri where he doesn't hold the sword in this fighting mood, but where the sword appears on the lotus, on the Nilotpala. So the sword is related to him. The way of showing it, that's a different question. And I must confess that I did not up to now really looked at this question, although I worked on Manjushri, but the point with us, so, I mean, I don't know if we can say is a Tibetan influence. The point is of course, a difficult question, and a question which I also ask myself since a number of years, is whether this last phase of the development of Buddhist iconography in India, I mean, broadly India, is also not due to the fact that there was quite a number of Tibetan monks coming to India to study. I mean, there was an interference, I think. I mean, they must have been involved in the making of this iconography. So the sword held by him, it has a meaning within Buddhism, with this sword that he destroys ignorance and that he opens the way to knowledge. So it's of course looking from the Buddhist side, where you think that Buddhism, especially in Bengal, was facing a very strong development of the Hindu Brahmanical temple, and with an extremely rich iconography. One can, of course, wonder whether all these characters within Buddhist characters who either are frightful or have a sword or threaten with a vajra or the sword are not there also as a kind of reaction towards this very fact that in fact Buddhism was slowly disappearing. So I'm not sure I could reply to your question. I would not say it's an influence from Tibet, because it would mean that in Tibet already you have from a much earlier period characters with a sword, and I'm not aware of it. So the sword also, in fact, the sword appears, now that you are telling, now it's going back to Bihar, where we have a deity who can either have a vajra or a sword fighting, and it's Marichi. Marichi can hold a sword at this place in a much earlier period, 9th century. So it could pass from her to Manjushri, this image, this concept. Then you don't have a Tibetan influence. It's within Buddhism, within Indian Buddhism that it developed. More I cannot say for the moment.
I can see there are a couple of questions in the chat box. One is Mr. Sanko.Ladar. He is asking that what was the main cause that Tantric Buddhism declined in Bengal? Why Tantric Buddhism deals as well as gives importance to the iconography?
So yeah, I see the question also. What was the main cause that the Tantric Buddhism was declined in Bengal? Well, I don't think it declined. In fact, it really developed very strongly in the 11th and 12th century. Only that after that, Buddhism disappeared. But still in the early 13th century, you have some very late images which have been produced in South Bengal. You have also still some Hindu images which have been produced, but afterwards, the production stops practically everywhere. It doesn't mean, it does not concerns only Buddhists, and the Tantric Buddhism, Buddhism, in fact, it's not that it's Tantric Buddhism, it's just as Buddhism disappeared from India, in fact, practically. You just here or there, some traces, small areas, but otherwise it's the end, and the end started already at a much earlier period. That's it. In fact, the Buddhism was less and less involved in the lay society, which turned more and more towards the Hindu temple on the one hand. On the other side, one knows that within Bengal at least, the lay people were more involved, less than the Sangha itself, in ritual. So it really spread slowly in the society, but once the monks had to leave, we know from Tibetan sources that they really, in the 12th century, they went from Lakhisarai, from Bihar, they went to Jagadala, they met last time in Jagadala, and then they left and they went to Tibet, or they went to South, outside India. So it just disappeared, but the 11th, 12th century is a great period of Tantric Buddhism in India, in fact. Looking at it ferocious deities.
One more is from Shushmita Nandini. She is asking that the trifold art niche is also found in some of the stupa images of Buddha from Kurkia. Was this an influence from South Bengal?
What do you mean? Does she mean the small so-called votive stupas? Because there, of course, this is a topic which you have all these these stupas are found also in Bodh Gaya, in Nalanda. They are all found all to major site in Bihar. And there you have the threefold niche, which is there, in fact, from the beginning, 8th, 9th century. And so there, the influence, if there was an influence, it was more going from Bihar to South Bengal for the use of this threefold than the country, because it's before that in Bihar.
Anything more from? You have a question? Please come. One research student of our department here has a question. Please come. Come fast.
Good evening, ma'am.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Devashish Dev. I'm a PhD scholar. I'm a PhD scholar of this one. I'm a PhD scholar of Ancient Indian History and Archaeology Department. Yes, sir. Good evening, ma'am. My name is Devashish Dev. I'm a PhD scholar from Ancient Indian History, Culture and Archaeology Department. So my question is, do you find any relation between Makara head in architecture, or some gargoyle from some architecture shows that they are made of Makara head. So do you find any relation with Buddhism with Makara?
Well, Makara gargoyles are found in number of remains from excavation. There is one in Lakhisarai, and there was some number were found in North Bengal, with deprived far from the architectural context. But as far as it's not related in particular to Buddhism. On the sculptures, and have some of them which I have shown, you find the two Makara's heads on either side of the lintel. But again, this is a topic which you find on any image, Hindu or Jain, or that's, it's not particular to Buddhism. So it's like you had also the Manjushri, which I've shown, where there are two images where they are very much depicted with a shrine. You have also on that side the Leogriff, the Viala, and the elephant, which, I mean, these three elements, the Makara, Viala, and the elephant, is a motif which is also found in temple decoration, but which is found in any sculpture, especially in those from North Bengal, whether it's Buddhist or Hindu. So it's not especially Buddhist. More I cannot say.
Anything else? Sharoni, you have a question? Please come. One master degree student, she also, actually, ma'am, they are excited. And I hope after this lecture, they'll be inspired also.
I hope also for you. You will have more work.
Hello, ma'am. I am Shorini. Am I audible to you?
Yes, very good.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, you have shown in your slide that Buddha was treated with whatever I should call this, the Hindu god, with the vermilion in its with its, and how Hindu deities, Hindu means a Brahminical deity is used to treated like whatever in Bengali it is said like mala and malya with flowers. And there one concept I have shown in your slide that Buddha is associated with a lady with its dancing form having so many hands. So in the further case, what I have said to you that with the Buddha as treated as a Hindu god with the vermilion. So should we call it is coming from any kind of tantric version, or it is a kind of assimilation or acculturation of a Hindu goddess or anything?
You mean the dancing position? I don't. Okay. You mean the dancing position?
No. I am asking for the slide in you have shown that Buddha's murti with the vermilion in his head, or with a red choli, something like that.
Oh, no, actually, I think she is talking about the sculpture which you have shown from Bodh Gaya, which is installed in a temple.
You mean the Kapaladara, the one which is still drawn, I mean, with a red dress, yes? And what does, your microphone is out. I don't hear you. Okay.
So, ma'am, my question.
You mean the image from the Krishna Dwarka, the one? Yes. And what was the question about it?
Yeah. So, ma'am, can we say it's like any acculturation or assimilation?
Oh, I understand you mean because it's in the your microphone is out again because.
Asking that whether
okay.
acculturation or appropriation.
No, I understood the point. Well, the point is that this image is since hundreds of years there, and I have shown also the large Jagdishpur image, the Buddha, which is a shrine, which is southwest of Nalanda. And this huge Buddha is called, in fact, Rukmini. So the image are, you know how it is. The name is practically, it depends on who is, I mean, this image has survived. This is a very important feature. It has been somehow assimilated, I don't know how to call it, but it has been integrated. For the Jagdishpur, it has its own small shrine, in fact. It's the center of a very small shrine, and it fills the entire shrine. In the Gaya, the Hevadra, which is in the Krishna Dvarka, he's not seen, I don't remember how they call him, but they don't see him as a Hevadra. They don't see him as a Buddhist deity. I mean, the knowledge which is lost since 800 years. But it has received another name, and I have seen that a number of that also in villages in Bihar, where I would say very proud, oh, this is this or this, and for the local people, it's something different. And it's another, but it's still a deity. That's a major thing, and there's a I would not say assimilation. I would say maybe integration, integrated into the person integrate this image in his system of belief. And somehow it rescues the image, of course, because it still is being devoted, venerated, and it's not being cut or destroyed. So this is our, it's inherited. It's a part of the heritage of theirs, and it's difficult to no, as an art historian, or we stick at the book and we say, oh, this has to be that, and we with a lot of arrogance, maybe we say, oh, you know, they don't know what it is, in fact, because they see that. But it's not how we should see it. It's in fact, and as you know, you have in India a very generous way of looking at what the deity is. The god is polyvalent. He can be seen as a female, as a male. He has 2, 3, 4 eggs. He can even an aspect of Shiva with 3 legs. And we have just to respect, I think, this and this interpretation or this new name given to the deity. Your microphone is again cut.
Yeah. I think it is on.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
okay?
ma'am. Thanks for clearing my doubt.
Sorry, you missed that 13th of May. We have Rob Lindroth's lecture, ma'am, and he has delivered on this misunderstanding the identities of sculptures and how people, locals, they started worshipping this, like sometimes Buddhist deities as Brahmanical deities, or sometimes even vice versa. So that's
I have missed this.
And the title of his talk was Identifying Identities of Purana Murti in Greater Magad. And interestingly, who says, who knows, who cares?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Everybody cares and has his own interpretation.
Yeah.
Again, the microphone is out.
Okay. I think it's okay now. Okay, I'm sorry. So anyone else has any question? You also, please come soon. I think not more than one. I will take more because she has spent more time. So please come. Introduce yourself and then ask the question.
Thank you, ma'am, for such a great lecture. I am Iman Ganguly, pursuing MA in Archaeology from Visva-Bharati University. Ma'am, my question is, have you observed any influence of Brahmanical Hindu art on the Buddhist iconography of Eastern India, particularly in Pala period?
Oh, this is again a very tricky and interesting question. Your microphone is out, so if you ask me a question, I won't listen, I won't hear it. So it's okay, it's working. What does one understand with influence? The point is that there are similarities in how a deity is depicted. And what I've shown, for instance, with this very strange Hala Hala Lokeshwara, which is kept in Mahastangar, and which was from the Bogra, found in Bogra district, which has 6 arms and 3 faces, which has features coming from another aspect of Avalokiteshvara iconography, but which has also been depicted in a way like an aspect of Shiva. So sometimes one has to think that, I mean, stone images were not, it was not the normal monk. It was not a monk who was working stone. Stone is a heavy thing. There were ateliers, and the ateliers were working for the one and for the others. Some were specialized, some not. And when an artist is asked, well, can you make this and this and this? He has to look back at what his tradition is. And this is, for instance, what, as one of the other person who asked a question about the Makara, is that the artist will, for instance, integrate in the Buddhist, like in the Hindu, I mean, say Hindu in a general way. Iconography, he will integrate the motif of the Makara, the Vyala, the Gaja, the Kirtimukha at the top, and so on, and the flying figures. So you have a part of the composition which is common, which is pan-Indian, I would say, also pan-Eastern India, if you want, which is not specially Buddhist, which is not specially Hindu, but which is a background to an image. And then you have another element where you show that both meet, the Buddhist world and the Hindu world, is of course when in a number of images, and I have shown quite a few today, major Brahmanical deities are just trampled by the Buddhist deities. So which is of course a way of showing where the power lies, in fact, for the Buddhist. Where there's, I mean, one of the major characters who's shown, who has clearly aspect which has been borrowed. I don't like the word influence. I would say just borrowed aspect from the Shaiva world is Avalokiteshvara. I did not show it today because it's a completely different topic. It's that in this Harivarma manuscript from South Bengal, like in Lakhisadai, you have aspect of Avalokiteshvara, which is dancing, a dancing Avalokiteshvara. And the dancing Avalokiteshvara appears in South Bengal in this Harivarman manuscript. Now, I suspected that it appears there, and it was there, you would say maybe influence or borrowing of a special position. The main Shaiva image in South Bengal was the dancing Shiva. And there in this manuscript, you have the Avalokiteshvara who is dancing. And you have also a few other examples. So there, of course, one can say that, oh, they found this concept of a dancing deity. That's great. And we take it also, we do it. And after it's carried back in the 12th century to Lakhisarai, where you have a lintel, two bodhisattvas, the third one is missing, which were dancing. So there you could say, of course, that there is and there's like that a few examples where this maybe Avalokiteshvara and Shiva, they play together somehow, where you can say that the one borrowed from the others a number of features. But of course, one speaks in an abstract way, one say it's Avalokiteshvara who takes it. But in fact, these are men, human beings who made this, who thought about this concept. So in fact, I can, if you look, as Professor Kumar say in my bibliography on Academia Edu, you will find there at least 2 papers where I tackle the question of the Shaiva. I think it was called From Shiva to Avalokiteshvara. And this is one. And then there was an older paper in the Journal of Bengal Art where which was called From Demon to God, or From God to Demon. I don't know, remember exactly, where From God to Demon, where the major Hindu deities are included in the Buddhist iconography, but as members of the Mara army. So there are different tactics from the side of the Buddhists, but we also tend to oppose Buddhism and Hinduism. But Buddhism was a part of the Indian society. So as we see, for instance, in Kukia, in the bronzes found in Kukia, you had also some depicting Uma Maheshwara, which were donated to the temple, to the monasteries. So the normal lay person outside the monasteries might have gone also to the Hindu temple and given every morning to the monks. So I don't know if I answer properly, but it's a very complicated question. Your microphone is out.
Thank you, and I will read those articles. Thank you.
Thank you. I think now we are done with our. There's no question from our audience. So may I now request my colleague, Dr. K.M. Rajan, to deliver his vote of thanks.
Good evening, all of you. So nearly 2 hours, Professor Claudine spent her very precious time with us. I'm very much honored to be here to deliver a formal vote of thanks on the occasion of Visva-Bharati lecture series. At first, I would like to thank to our Honorable Vice Chancellor for his constant support and encouragement in all academic activities. Again, I would like to thank to Professor Claudine for his very interesting, illuminating lecture. Really, she has done a lot of the field work, very extensive, the field work in collecting the many of images and other the statues which relating to the Buddhism and other, the Brahmanical and other traditions. She really highlighted as the important salient features of the Buddhist iconography, which we find in between the 11th and 12th century AD. So almost we are really interested, very interesting. Your lecture was very interesting. We are really highlighted on the enlightened lecture, which we delivered nearly for more than 2 hours. Really, we are very thankful to you, madam. On behalf of Visva-Bharati community, I extend my heartfelt thanks to you and the sincere effort. I also would like to thank our Director IQAC, Professor Anil Kumar, for his initiative in arranging you to deliver, share your ideas, your views with us regarding the Buddhist iconography. I also extend my sincere thanks to the librarian and other faculty members of the Library and Computer Center for their kind assistance. I also express my sincere thanks to all the faculty members, the professors from the different departments, those who joined online as well as the offline mode. We also, on behalf of Visva-Bharati community, I express my sincere thanks to the students and faculties, the research scholars, and the supporters in the success of today's lecture series. Once again, thank you all for your kind presence here. Thank you.
I thank you very much. It was really an honor and a pleasure for me to be somehow virtually in Shantiniketam today.
No, ma'am, but as you assured our Honorable Vice Chancellor that soon you will visit us. So we will be waiting for you and we'll be eagerly waiting for you to host you here and in physical mode interact with us as well as with our students. So thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.